Wait.
Two. Hello, Steve. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special discussion with you, Steve, today. And you will start the discussion, or you want that I start?
I'm happy to start, no problem.
Okay, start this conversation together. That's okay for me.
Okay, brilliant. So we were talking about self-connection and how important it is. In fact, I'd go beyond saying it's important, it's actually vital. And a couple of the reasons why it's of vital importance is because it contributes to our well-being and it contributes to our positive mental health. So there's a load of reasons why self-connection is really important. If you think about it, if you feel disconnected, just stop for a minute and think. Just imagine feeling disconnected. What does it make you feel like? How do you feel inside when you feel disconnected from the world around you? I know how I feel. I frequently feel frustrated. I don't feel anger, but I feel frustrated, and it's almost as though something has been pulled away that matters, and that I've got to get it back because I've got to keep that connection. I need my connection with people, my connection with you, Anne, as we talk about the different subjects that we talk about. It's really important for my own, and not only for my own understanding, but for my own awareness of me, my self-awareness. Because I need to understand my thoughts and I need to understand my emotions. If my emotions are all, let's say I'm experiencing a big load of anger for some reason, so my emotions are all kind of up there and quite annoyed and flying around the place, I become disconnected from the world around me because I go very internal. I go inside of myself, and that's never a good place to be. So if I'm connected to myself, I become more aware of my emotions, my thoughts, and my behaviors. And if I'm aware of those things, then I can better manage them as they happen. So if the emotion love pops up, I can understand it, where it's coming from, what put it there. So I'm connected, so I know where it all comes from. If the emotion of, let's say, frustration comes up, I can calm things down and say, I know where this is coming from. It's an interesting emotion and I know what it comes from. So I can better manage it. And if I'm self-aware, I tend to be able to reflect on things. As I've just said, what I've been hinting at is a kind of a reflection. And it enables me to understand that things like, what are my strengths? What things in life challenge me? And what can I do about them? And what are my life experiences? And how do they fit into the big picture? How can I use my life experiences? So there's a whole ton of stuff that self-connection and self-awareness kind of take care of. So how do you feel on that, Anne?
Yes, that's all the answer of what is self-connection. Because sometimes my clients say, wow, self-connection, what do you mean about that? Because connection with myself, what is it? And self-connection, for me, it's important to know that it's a process of becoming deeply aware, as you say, of our thoughts, emotions, and needs. And if you want to hit something, but you are not self-connect with yourself, when you are not connected, you don't know what you have to eat. For example, when you are here, you want to eat something, some sugar, but you prefer eat some salt, some cheese. But for you, for your body, it's better to take a piece of chocolate. But you ignore that because you don't have the conscience of yourself. So it's the first part. It involves to be present with ourselves, listening to our inner experiences and acting in accordance with our true feelings and desires. And this practice of self-connection is essential for living authentically and harmoniously. But self-connection is difficult. It's difficult for a lot of people. Why? Because in modern lifestyles, in today past world, we are constantly bombarded with distractions, from the relentless notifications on our smartphone to the pressures of works and social obligations. Finding quiet emotions to connect with ourselves can be incredibly challenging. So, for example, think about your average day. How often do you find yourself rushing from one task to another without a moment to pause and reflect? This constant state of busyness leaves little room for self-connection. And why, for me, self-connection is difficult is also about emotional avoidance. Many of us tend to avoid uncomfortable emotions. Instead of facing feelings of sadness, anger, fear, we prefer distract ourselves with activities or suppress these emotions. And this avoidance creates a barrier to self-connection. But it's a comfort zone for us. We prefer watching the TV, listen to music, and don't listen to our voice, to our emotions, to be more comfortable. Consider a time when you felt overwhelmed by stress. Did you turn your phone, watch TV, or dive into work to avoid dealing with the stress directly? These avoidance behaviors hinder our ability to connect with our true emotional states. I have a lot of self-connection difficulties today. And the third, and I will let you talk about that, I have the inner critic. You know, the inner voice, the self-talk that runs through our minds can be harsh and critical for a lot of us. This inner voice, this inner critic often undermines our self-worth and makes it difficult to connect with ourselves with compassion. I take often this example, recall a moment when you made a mistake. Did your inner voice bombard you with negative self-talk like, I'm such a failure, I can't do anything right? This kind of self-criticism erodes our self-connection. So all of that are proofs with scientific insight, some study, medicine, research in Harvard, and all of that indicates that regular mindfulness practice, meditation, breathing can enhance all that and bring more self-confidence connection with ourselves. So you, Steve, you deal with the inner voice and all of that.
The inner voice. I've got a good example of the inner voice. This is something that happened to somebody close to me quite recently, where there was a situation, it was a work situation. And the person close to me hadn't done something wrong, but the perception of somebody else was that there had been a mistake. So what happens is that you start to look inside. Did I really make a mistake? Am I sure that I got it right? So you start to question, the inner voice kicks in. Did you get it right? Did you make a mistake? Did I get it right? Did I make a mistake? Who's right? Who's wrong? All kinds of turmoil comes up. And then we start to feel stressed. We start to feel anxious. We start to question our practice. Did we do a good job? Did we not do a good job? Did we do the right thing? Did we do the wrong thing? That little voice up there goes crazy. It has a meltdown almost. And what happens to us whilst all that's going on is that our connection is pretty much severed, and we become very internal with our thinking. We forget that outside of us, we're involved in a big world. It's not just ourselves, but we lose that connection temporarily. Another example as well is a client recently. I had a client recently who was frequently stressed. So I said to her, what happens when you feel stressed? And she listed perhaps all the obvious things. And I said, no, just stop for a minute. What happens to your body when you feel stressed? What do you feel? What do you notice in your body? And she thought about it for a moment and she said, I stopped breathing. And I said, but you can't not breathe. If you don't breathe, you don't have life. But that's what I do. I don't breathe. But in that moment when she's not breathing, she's not getting the oxygen that she needs for all kinds of stuff, for thinking, amongst others, she loses that connection, her self-connection. Her self-connection it's almost like you take a wire out of the plug. What happens when you take a wire out of the plug? It doesn't work. It's simple stuff. It's not complicated. So we need to really look at all the aspects of this idea of self-connection. And then there's self-esteem. If people start to challenge us and we start to let that inner voice take over, what happens to our view of self? It becomes less than positive because there's doubt. But perhaps sometimes it becomes a little bit negative. Sometimes it drifts between positive and negative, where normally we have a positive self-view. Maybe we're experiencing some negative thoughts about ourselves because that little voice is running around up there. It's almost like playing on repeats. So if we have a strong self-connection, that contributes to things like a high self-esteem. It helps us with our self-esteem, the way we feel about ourselves. It helps us with our feelings of self-worth. So many people say, I don't feel very worthy of the things in my life. I don't feel very worthy of all the good things that are trying to be bestowed upon me. They have all kinds of reasons, and usually that's low self-esteem. But the little voice is up there reminding them that they are not worthy. You are not worthy. You are not worthy. If you listen to psychotherapist Marissa Peer, she talks about being enough. And she encourages people to write with lipstick on a mirror in your house, I am enough. Just to remind yourself that actually, yes, you are enough. And I think that's something that's well worth taking from Marissa Peer. So if we're connected to self, we are more likely to be compassionate towards ourselves. And that is so important as well, isn't it? We need to have that kind of compassionate attitude towards ourselves. We have to treat ourselves with kindness. The little voice sometimes isn't very kind. We have to learn how to override that little voice. Now, all these things, I'm suggesting, okay, you need to learn how to override the little voice in your head, how to stop it from shouting these negative things at you. It's quite difficult. It's quite challenging. For some people, it's not so. And I would argue that they are more self-connected than others. For some people, it's extremely difficult. So there's a long process, and that process may involve coaching. It may involve therapy. It may involve some group work. It may involve learning some simple exercises. Everybody's different. There is no one size fits all, as I frequently like to say to people. So there are all kinds of challenges that come up if we're not self-connected. So, Anne, do you have any more? The little voice in the head. My little voice is talking at me right now, and I'm telling it to be quiet.
We all have an inner voice, but I have a powerful exercise that I practice with my client that I use for myself. It's to be my little voice, my inner voice is my best friend forever. And I deal with when I change my mindset with her and I accept my little voice, and we are both in a good relationship, the best relationship that I have in my life. But it's work. We have to work on it. We have to make the partner life with our inner state. And accept also, because it's normal to be hungry. It's normal to be stressed. It's normal to not accept everything in life and to be rushed. But the main thing is not be touched inside by this emotional state. And it's just like an actor. You look at you accept the emotion, but you don't take the emotion for yourself. So you have like a protection, like a protect, an envelope, you roll yourself in a case and nobody touch you and nothing touch you. It's a common idea when I take this exercise. But as you say, we are all different. Our physiology is different, and one size works for one person, another size works for another person. When we talk about conscious breathing, it works for sure, because breathing, if you don't breathe, you don't live, for sure. But an exercise that I use with some clients, very important to use compassionate, to be compassion and kindness with ourselves, it's journaling. Because sometimes it's more easy to write some thoughts, some emotions on a paper. And it helps you to proceed to your inner experiences, because you put the notes and you promote self-reflection on yourself, emotional awareness. You change the sentence that you wrote. You put a positive affirmations around that, and it's like when you want to learn something new, you have to put step by step something to learn, and more you repeat the task for journaling and what your task, what your thoughts, what your emotions in your daily life each morning. 5 minutes each morning, for example, you put your notes, your thoughts, your feelings. You will see the difference very fast in your life. It will change your inner voice. You will feel more compassionate with yourself, more kindness for yourself. It's very powerful, and it's free. It's very simple to use journaling for yourself. And when we talk about self-compassion, is available for everyone. You don't have to buy something. You don't have to do something. Cultivating a compassionate voice is crucial for self-connection. Speak to yourself with kindness and understand, especially during difficult times. We all have hard times in life. Life is not linear. We all have troubles. We all have pains. We all have all of that. But what it's changed for us, it's the way we react and we perceive. Our behavior is not the same as yours, because we know and we accept the emotion, we integrate the state of this. It's all about awareness, as you say, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a question. And this question comes from some research that I read recently about goal setting. And the research said, or the research found, that the people who don't achieve their big goals, so we're not talking about the little stuff, we're talking about the big stuff. The people who don't achieve their big goals often discover, with help from a coach, usually, that the goal hasn't been in alignment with their true values, which is fascinating, isn't it? So the question is, the next time you're setting a goal ask yourself, does this align with my values? I know I've tried to achieve certain things in the past and it's not worked out. And looking back in retrospect, it's frequently been because the particular goal didn't align. It didn't match me. It didn't match my connection. There was no connection between me and the goal. And we need to have that connection. For anybody watching and listening right now, Anne and I have a connection. If we didn't have a connection, we wouldn't work well together. That's really important. So you need to look closely and ask that question, does this align with my true values? And if it doesn't, some action is needed to do something about it. But that's a good thing because it shows that you are self-connected. Big win, positive. So what about being authentic? Some people, and I don't say this in a mean or overly critical way, but some people are not particularly authentic in the relationships they have with other people. And I always wonder, why not? What is going on here? What's happening with this person to kind of let them stand away or not be authentic in their relationships? And one of the things is that, and I've found this through my practice with working with these people, is that they frequently don't really understand and or accept themselves for who they are. In other words, they're not connected to themselves. So because of that lack of connection, it's very difficult for them to have authentic relationships. Whereas the people who I know who are very well self-connected, and I can think of some examples, their authenticity kind of stands out. It's very noticeable. So there's something in there that we need to do some thinking on. And I would urge everybody to think on it. Ask yourself, how self-connected do I feel in my life? Or you might ask the question from a different angle by saying, am I connected to everything around me? And are all the things I'm connected to actually good for me? I'm not saying get out there and drop all your negative connections or your challenging connections, but at least let's have a look at them and have a think about it. We could talk all day about this topic, and probably tomorrow and the next day as well. There's so much to say.
Of course, so much to say. Moreover, when you talk about authenticity, it's a word that talk to me because I wrote my book in French, and the title is Authentic. It's about my life, my story, not all my life, but a part of my story, my chapter, a part of my transformational state. But when we talk about authenticity, I think that people prefer play a role and hide their face behind a mask. And it's a sort of protection, but it's also because they know their identity, their personality, and nobody told you, nobody teach you when you talk about value, how many people know their value right now? I work a lot with people who I have a value test that I use in my work. It's so difficult for people with the test to answer the questions about the value, but because they don't know them. And when I work with my client, I see the potential, the superpower that they have that they ignore. And I think that for Steve, for you, it's the same. We see that people are more than they think. And by this way, we empower them to go beyond the measure and to go deeper in themselves. And I want to tell everyone who listens to us, don't be afraid with your inner voice. Don't be afraid to be authentic, to connect with yourself. All the relationship with yourself and relationship with the others, it's the same. The same belief that I work with it during 20 years ago. Because the relationship with yourself and the relationship with the others, we have the same inner voice. We have third party in the both situation, third party or four party, because between two persona. But in one persona, you have the inner voice. We are two persons. But the two persona are the same person. One is empower you, and maybe it's a voice that defines your personality and defines who you are. But it's not you. Listen to her and change the voice, change the sentence, the voice that you listen. Try it. Just one thing you can change. It's I'm enough, as you say. Because I think that it's the best, not the best, but the most common belief is I'm not enough. So change, I'm enough. I love me. I love you. I appreciate myself. I can do that. Change in positive way. And yeah, we can talk about that a long time with Steve, and we will have more powerful discussion soon. Stay tuned, because we have a good connection between us, and we have the same vision to empower people around us.
Brilliant. I love that. And just going back to the book, I know I keep asking, but you might as well answer for the public. When will they be able to, and me, when will we be able to read this book?
Nice. So my book is published in French because I'm French, and my book is available on Amazon. I wrote it 4 years ago. I'm not quite sure, but it's in French, only in French. But it's available also on Amazon. It's available on Barnes and Noble LS also for the English people who are French people who are abroad. And yeah, they're so authentic. And my name, Ann Bost, is my first book that I wrote.
Brilliant. Thank you. So self-connection is, you could say it's at the foundation of our mental health, our positive mental health, at the foundation of our positive well-being. It enables us to look after things like emotional regulation, our self-esteem, our decision-making. It enables empathy and understanding as well. We've not really talked about that today, so perhaps we can look at that next week. And all of that contributes to a more satisfying life. And it's a big win. So let's think self-connection. If you've got any questions, send us questions. We will respond. Or make a comment. Do whatever you've got to do to get in touch with us. If you choose to send us direct messages, brilliant, because you'd like, for example, some confidentiality, that's not a problem. We never share anything that's sent to us privately. So please don't hesitate, get in touch. That's enough from me for today. Anne, do you have any final words?
No, feel free to ask us some questions, and we are here to help you and to guide you and to offer you our life experience, our skills. And moreover, more you ask questions, more you will learn a lot, because we are here. So thank you so much, Steve, for this moment sharing together. And I wish you, everyone who listens to us or see the recording, to make a comment and ask anything you need to help us to bring more insight, more tips in our following video that we will share with you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anne.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Steve.
everybody. See you again soon.